Hello and welcome back to The Social Club, brought to you by tvsportsblog.com. Hello and welcome back to The Social Club, a show brought to you by tvsportsblog.com, part of the Chronicles of a Gooner, of course. But this is the show where we get to not talk about Arsenal, not moan about Arsenal. And in fact, we're probably not even going to mention them for the entirety of this show, which is great news for me because right now I'm sick of it. It's not a great time to be an Arsenal supporter at the moment. All the doom and gloom has come back. Football's come back too. And to join me to discuss how we've enjoyed it is a couple of guests, two regulars. There's no doubt you'll recognise them. It's Dan Luca and Simon Alavi. Dan, first of all, how you doing, mate? Welcome back. It's been a while.
Yeah, you won't recognise me with this fucking hair. I need a barber's to open pretty soon, to be honest.
It's terrible, but when I look at you on the screen, mate, that's not the worst thing that jumps out at me. It's that disgusting shirt.
Yeah, I did see your intro there. You're talking about not moaning about Arsenal, and you got a wanker and a Spurs shirt on. So yeah, you're just gonna have to endure that for a little bit, I'm afraid. I could take it off. It's a much worse view for everyone, I promise.
Nah, leave it on. I think even that's not that bad. Mr. Alavi, welcome back, mate. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, all good. Can't complain. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Looking nice and tanned. You been out in the garden or you been at the bottle again?
Bit of both.
There you go.
One aids the other.
Yeah, bit of both. That's it. Big hello to all the guys currently watching us in the live chat, to Omar, to Wayne, who's currently tuned in from South Africa. How you doing, mate? Welcome to the show. And to the Mr. Arsenal podcast, another Arsenal podcast. Do check them out. It's a great show as well. So if you haven't already, please do so. Don't forget this show is sponsored by tvsportsblog.com. And we're going to kick off by talking about Project Restart. Now, there was a lot of anticipation about the return of the Premier League, understandably so, because it's been a horrible time in this world. You know, we've had people losing their lives due to this horrible virus. Life as we know it has completely changed. It's starting to head back to something like normal, and football coming back was one of those big moments for me anyway, in terms of my life getting back to normal. Dan, let's start with you, mate. How have you enjoyed the return of football? Actually, have you enjoyed it at all?
Not really. Not really. I don't want to be stubborn because I did say all along that I wasn't a fan of restarting. And that was more to do with the fairness of the game. I don't think you can change rules halfway through a season. So taking the fans away is something I reluctantly accepted in the end because there was no choice. But I think if they kept the rules the same, then I'd be a lot more comfortable with it. Like, you can't be having 5 subs now when 3 months ago teams had to soldier on with 10 men because they'd used their subs, had a player injured. So I weren't happy with that. And I did say the last time I was on this pod that I think I said, have you ever enjoyed a game you've watched behind closed doors? And I think we've seen 11 or 12 games so far. I've not enjoyed a single one, if I'm honest. I've liked watching them, and I haven't had to speak to my wife for a bit. And it sort of got, the first couple of days had that sort of World Cup feel to it, didn't it? Which was back-to-back games. But you realise how, even the dullest moments, if you've got some fans in the background, it makes a difference. And there's not been a single good game, as there, in my view anyway. So I'm happy to have something to watch, but I'm not really enjoying the football.
I thought Spurs Man U was all right.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the one game I probably have watched and thought, yeah, this is a decent standard game. It is that one. Of course, as an Arsenal fan, that the games that we've been involved in have been horrendous so far in terms of, not in terms of entertainment though, but in terms of what's happened to us. They've made me obviously not want to watch them and obviously not enjoy them. But you know what else? What I think I would enjoy watching, Dan trying to untangle those headphones. For those of you watching us on YouTube, that is an incredible knot. How have you managed that?
You didn't see it before I untangled it. I had 2 minutes to get on this pod, and I found my headphones. It was just a big ball. So I got to this state, and I didn't want to be late.
Having known Dan for many years, I've heard what he can do in 2 minutes is legendary. So, fair play.
There you go, Mr. Alavi. Have you enjoyed the return of football? And same question to you: have you enjoyed it at all?
I'm struggling, I have to admit. I was and I'm going to end up being wrong because I was for the return of football, but as it is now, I am really struggling, if I'm honest. I do think we have to give it some time. I don't think it's something that we can say after 1 week. And I almost accepted that, say, Norwich, Southampton maybe wasn't going to be as enjoyable. But to not enjoy tonight, to not enjoy Liverpool, Everton, that's where I don't. And you talk about the fans, but they have got that crowd noise. And that crowd noise isn't bad. It's not bad in the German league. It's not bad in the Italian. So I can't picture what it is. I don't know if it's maybe affecting the intensity of the games. I don't know, but they're just. I guess the other thing, which I never really thought about before, is we're in an awkward position where it's not like we've just got a couple of games to just quickly get us to the end, right? And it's not like we're at the start of the season where we can almost start over. We're just in that mid. You know, when your hair gets to a certain length and you're like, oh, you got to choose whether to go away or just shake. Yeah. It's like that. And it's just like today showed that derbies need fans, don't they? Like the edge of today, the edge of Sunday, Liverpool Everton was just softened by the pitch. But it is, and it's like it's a similar situation today. Like how many incidents, how many big tackles. I don't want to sound like a cliche supporter, but yeah, just I'm really struggling, and I never realised what impact the fans would actually make. I must have just underplayed the whole thing.
I think the fan noise has made a mild difference, like having it versus not having it. Because I weren't expecting it. The first time I heard it, I was like, "Oh, that's all right. That's a good idea." But it's not the same. You think when a team is struggling or not playing very well for a period of time, how quickly the fans get on the team's back, and then when a home team's like 1-0 down or even 2-0 down and they score a goal, there's that massive momentum shift that comes with the fans. And the bottom line is, in football particularly, you need the fans to inspire the players, and then you need the players to inspire the fans. Is the sort of.
But Dan, were these games boring before? Like, are we rewriting history? Like, is there a self-fulfilling prophecy where if 10 minutes into a game, 15 minutes into a game, and it's boring, say like tonight or Liverpool Everton, rather than saying, "Oh, this is typical derby, very tense," or typical two teams that don't want to concede, we're going, "Oh, this is typical post lockdown." Football's not as good anymore. Do you know what I mean? Have we got that thing in our self-conscious where you're automatically got a reason?
I think there's bits where like a game would have been shit before and you might not have noticed as quickly because there's something else going on.
That's what I mean. You take
Spurs West Ham today, really shit game after 20 minutes, right?
Awful.
Yeah, really shit, like desperately bad. And in a real situation, what would happen is someone, a terrible footballer, normally Mark Noble, would put in an absolutely terrible challenge. He'd put in a terrible challenge to try and G up his supporters. And then the Spurs supporters would they'd be giving it to the ref and you'd get that massive crescendo of noise and it inspires players then to break that cycle of monotony. Whereas at the minute, it's just like, I didn't even cheer the second goal.
I do.
Be honest.
I do.
What games is this good before? Like, are we rewriting history? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I've been working on commentary on a number of games since football's come back. I started off doing Bundesliga games, which were, of course, all played behind closed doors. And when you're doing them on commentary, you don't get the benefit of the crowd noises because that doesn't come through in the mix when you're dealing with it, and the games that I've done more recently, even the Premier League ones, we don't have that in the mix. It comes through to the viewers, but it doesn't come through to us. And what I found is initially I was like, wow, this is weird. This is strange. But the more I watched it, the more games I did, the more I got over it. And maybe because I've been doing those games, I'm a little bit more advanced than you guys in terms of my getting used to it. Not saying that, I'm just further down the line of getting used to it because I've watched more of it. And going back to the Merseyside derby just quickly, a lot of people have said that it was a dire game. I was on commentary for that game, and I actually found it fascinating watching it so closely, how tactically astute and how committed Everton were on that day. And we can talk about the crowd not being there, and maybe it kills the intensity of the game a little bit. I think it kills the intensity from a supporter's perspective, and some players will be affected by it. But I thought there were a number of Everton players like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, like Seamus Coleman, who I would say that's the best game I've ever seen him play in his entire career. I thought it was fantastic at right back. So I do think that it's just something that we're just going to have to get used to. And the more you watch of it, the more you'll get used to it. And with the Premier League, this is the first weekend and the first Bundesliga or first week of full games we had, and now moving into the second. But the Bundesliga was like this as well. And as the weeks went by, the levels of fitness improved, the quality of the football improved, and then the crowd became more of a side note than being the actual main thing.
But you're in a like, whether you like it or not, because of your work, you are in a minority to that average football fan in terms of how you're going to view a game, right? So if you look at the average football fan, you have to appreciate that we're not all going to be watching like Seamus Coleman's tackle percentage on a Sunday night. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, is it a subconscious thing where we just know that there's a reason to not like something, so we just jump down? I don't know.
Video,
you're on mute, mate.
That's probably the most sense I've ever made on any of these pods. But fans are part of live sport. They are part of that game. You're taking them away. It's never going to be the same level of excitement. It's not going to inspire the same quality of football in the majority of games. I think it's a really shit example, right? You watch PDC darts and then watch BDO darts, and you can't enjoy BDO darts because the fans sit there like that, like eating crisps. Whereas the other ones, you've got like 4,000 pissed up fellas throwing empty glasses as the players are throwing darts. Do you know what I mean? You can't. It's an incomparable situation, and that noise, when you're a top level sportsman, that's what you want. You want a crowd to be able to play up to. You see it now in any football game. Ronaldo is the best. He'll do something because he knows there's a crowd there. He knows there's people watching. He knows there's a camera. And now you're taking all that away. It's never going to be the same level of excitement, and you might get used to it.
Is the pace different, Dan, or did we just preempt the pace being slower? So we're just looking for it to be slower.
Yeah, but it's naturally going to be slower when you watch the start.
Like after an international break, it could be slower sometimes.
When you watch the start of the Premier League season, often the first couple of weeks are a little bit underwhelming because you're so hyped up for it to come back. You're so excited to see it, and then it rarely delivers. So
but they don't have games bang, 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 bang. That's the issue.
You're a footballer.
We've just got games constantly.
You pick the ball up in midfield. Right, it falls to you. It's a scrappy little ball. You've got an option. You're facing backwards to your own goal. You can pass it 5 yards. As you get the ball, 6,000 fans shout, "God!" What do? How many times are you going to turn around? Because the fans will drive that attack. When Arsenal have been struggling in games and you're getting frustrated, how often? Arsenal's a bad example. Where are Arsenal going to borrow their
terrible example?
They've had louder fans. This.
Yeah, where are they going to borrow the crowd noises from? Is there a club going to lend them? But no. But the point is, like, you hear, even in North London derby, the one this season, you were 2-0 down. Yeah, you get that element of crowd noise where the crowd forces the players to do something more exciting because that's what the crowd are there for. And you drive, you inspire a comeback, you inspire a better performance. You're not going to have that. How many teams have won from behind in this? I bet there's probably none. You're looking for that bit of inspiration when it's all going tits up, and it's not going to be the same level of quality until you get fans back. It's just not.
No,
they're more human. The players are more human than I thought. They're more the fans are more important than I thought.
But do you think as well, though, that people's mindset in general has shifted due to what the world's been going through? So we've never had a virus that's broken. Well, we've had viruses that have broken out, but not to this scale where so many people are dying and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but in first world countries where this stuff doesn't happen, and it's happened. And I think what lockdown has done is it's made other people think about other problems in life, more important ones, really, like how they're going to work to put food on the table for their families, how they're going to stay healthy and fit. And I think people's mindset has shifted, and I think the interest in football from where you'd get the sort of semi-casual fan who's kind of into it, I think that those people in particular are probably a little bit less bothered about what happens now between the end of the season.
Yeah, you're right.
If you're not in a position where you're challenging for the league title or a Champions League spot or fighting relegation, which is quite a few clubs, again, what's your interest going to be like in this? Probably minimal. There's so many factors. I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on how you.
I think logistically, Harry, as well. Like, let's just take the average I don't know, family or couple, you've got, say, you're working 1.5 between you, yeah? So one of you's doing part-time, one of you's doing full-time. There's a 6 o'clock game, you've got a kid, you've got 2 kids, you've got no childcare, you've got no nursery, all of this. How are you going to, it's going to be more difficult than it was before to A, watch that game, and B, in terms of perspective, you've got, I don't know, maybe people unwell, X amount of people dying. I don't know, do you find it morally difficult to get behind players who are paid 200k a week? Do you know what I mean? That moral thing, I don't know.
I don't find
that difficult.
I don't find it morally difficult to get back into football.
That's because your job.
No, and not even that. I just think what this crisis has done is it's made people appreciate those that are important, like the key workers and the people that are putting themselves at risk all the time and do all the jobs that people don't necessarily want to do, that are less glamorous, etc. But I don't think that means that you should feel like you can't enjoy football or that the footballers deserve criticism, because it's not that, they're in one position, the other people are in another, but the two are not linked. It's great that we appreciate other things now after what's happened and what is still happening, but I don't think it should be a reason to feel like you have to morally step away from football. Just wanted to let's talk about something else that came up in the news today, and we had a little bit of a chat about it in our WhatsApp group, and we decided that we were going to park it and save it for tonight. It's not Premier League related, but we heard today that Jonathan Woodgate has been sacked by Middlesbrough, and they've had a horrible season. Let's be honest, and it's about survival for them now. But a familiar face has popped up on the scene to take the job, and it's none other than Neil Warnock, who, Neil Warnock is one of a kind. I don't particularly rate him as a football manager. I think he has limitations. I think he knows he has limitations. But Dan, in 2020, is there still space? Is there still a place for somebody like Neil Warnock to come in with his briefcase when a team are in trouble in the Championship and steady the ship and walk off into the sunset again?
Yes, of course there is. Super Neil. Neil's a hero. Soon the whole world is going to disappear into nothingness, and Neil Warnock will be the only man left to defend our human race for forever, solely. I did have a little smile. I thought of Alavi, because I know how much Alavi hates Neil Warnock, and I guess he got me thinking. It shows how bored I am, but it got me really thinking about whether there's really a market for these managers anymore, and there is. There has to be, because what it goes to show is actually it's a bit like, I don't know, this is going to be really deep for a pod, so I don't want to offend too many listeners, but when people say they want, let's take sexism, yeah, they want the same amount of women and the same amount of men in the same company, yeah. So if you pick something like engineers, there's less women who want to be engineers than there is men who want to be engineers. So the further you go down of being equal, sooner or later you get to a place where the overall quality is completely dipped. Yeah, if you try and make every single manager manage in exactly the same way, you're going to get to a point where some teams haven't got a chance in hell. So you have to play a different way to compete at some point. And there are managers like Neil Warnock who have made a steady career out of playing this way. Sam Allardyce, famously, he's never been relegated. They used to, towards the end of his career, they used to bring Terry Venables in with a briefcase to sort of try and keep teams up. I know it sort of went round, but Tony Pulis, if you're in a pickle, you bring Tony Pulis. And the fact is, not every team has the same quality. Not every team has the access to the same qualities. There is a market for this manager, whether we like it or not. I think Neil Warnock is a clown. Right, let me rephrase that. Neil Warnock, there he is. Neil Warnock is a clown. Neil Warnock represents what English football was and what English football wants to move away from. But there is still a market for this type of manager, because not everyone can be of the same quality level. And if you look at Neil Warnock's record in the Championship, it's exceptional. He's terrible in the Premier League, but it's not his fault he always gets promoted, is it? So if you was a chairman, you'd bring Neil Warnock in, and the day he got promoted, you'd say, "Thank you very much, Neil. Now off you trot." But then who would you bring in? You'd bring in Daniel Farke, who everyone tells me is a good manager. His team are 7 points adrift of safety with 9 games left. So there is a market for this manager. And a bit like we have to accept football without fans, I guess we have to accept that we're not going to completely eradicate these managers, because there'll always come a point in time where at some point in the season there's going to be 6 or 7 teams fighting around the bottom, and they're going to do something to survive, and someone like Neil Warnock will come to the fore. And even now we're praising Chris Wilder. He's doing all right. He's playing some expansive stuff, but similar sort of mould. Steve Bruce is doing a wonderful job. Roy Hodgson has sort of reverted to that sort of tactic. Roy Hodgson, they had the same amount of points before tonight than Tottenham did, and they're saying they're happy to stay up. And Tottenham are looking at the Champions League. They've got the same amount of points, so there's always going to be a market for this type of manager. And Neil Warnock, he's the best. He's one of the best at it.
So why have they waited one game to fire someone?
Well, you can't.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, Alavi, before I give sort of my take on it, why do you dislike Neil Warnock so much? Because you do, you really dislike the guy. Like
everyone has one manager who they just hate, and for some reason he's always been mine. I just think he's everything wrong with like British football. I think what it is when I was young, I remember Anton Ferdinand was on Soccer AM, and they had an interview with him, and he was talking about how Neil Warnock was coaching him to kick the ball as far out the training pitch as possible, as if it was a stadium, and to shout out as he did it. And I just thought that's exactly why this country will never win a World Cup, because that's what Warnock's teaching. That's what I don't like about him. And I just don't understand. And I don't understand where Middlesbrough are going, because they get like quite progressive managers. Like they've had things before, haven't they? Not just Woodgate. I forgot his name now. Who did they have? Progressive. Gary Monk. That's the one.
They had Monk. They had Karanka.
They had Monk, didn't they? Yeah. No, yeah. Karanka played awful football. So this is what I don't understand. They go from like Karanka to Woodgate to and then they've got Pulis, and then they've now got Warnock. Like, they've got no identity. I just don't. Do you know what Middlesbrough's 2 games results were before lockdown? A draw and a win. A draw and a win. So it's not like they came in really bad form. So why would you? I just don't understand. Why would you let someone like just lose a game? If anything, sack him before and let Warnock have two months with the players to train. That's what I just cannot for the life of me think why he's been sacked.
Do you not think that this is just a major panic from Middlesbrough? I mean, look at the Championship table. They're literally sitting in 21st place. They are only outside of the relegation zone.
It's goal difference, isn't it?
Goal difference.
It looks like the perfect time to panic. Looking at that,
but this is what I mean. Like he's going to end up keeping them up, and he's going to look like a saviour when actually Woodgate would have probably got out of it. They've got to go to Stoke next, and they've got to play Hull. Stoke are 3-4 places in front. Hull, so they're 2 winnable games. So I don't know if it's because those teams are so close to Middlesbrough that he's thought we need to win these games. But it's going to annoy me because they're going to stay up.
What would you do if you were the chairman? Forget who you appoint. Would you forget who you appoint? Because everyone always looks at these things.
No, I would give Woodgate a chance. Like you're not talking about someone who's 10 points off relegation. You're talking about someone whose last 3 results are draw, win, loss. I know they got thumps, but
can you afford to do that though? Can Middlesbrough afford to slip into the 3rd tier? I mean, for me, it's one of those where they have given Woodgate a long time, and it's never really picked up.
They haven't backed him though. They haven't backed him financially.
They haven't, but that's because they can't. It's not because they don't want to. It's not because they don't trust him. And if anything, Jonathan Woodgate's probably been in the job too long, in my opinion. And it's come to the point where they've looked at it. There's 8 games to go in the Championship, and they've panicked. And I agree with Dan where he says that looking at that, it's the right time to panic. Now, I didn't want to talk about anything Arsenal on this show because the Social Club is my chance not to talk about Arsenal and to have a break from it. But we're getting loads of live comments through asking about one topic in particular. And it's a topic that I know for a fact that the pair of you have really, really strong opinions on. So I'm going to bring it up anyway. We're going to talk about David Luiz, because reports have emerged this evening from David Ornstein, who's normally very reliable when it comes to Arsenal or all things Arsenal, that David Luiz has signed a 1-year contract extension with the Arsenal. Now, Dan, I know you're not an Arsenal fan, but I know you have a very strong view on David Luiz. And is this, in your opinion, a good bit of business from the Gunners?
No, it's not. I know it kind of, obviously it feels like I pick on Arsenal, and I will pick on Arsenal a little bit because it's Sport Tottenham, and that's natural. But, I wouldn't tell blatant lies about my opinion. And when Arsenal signed him for £8 million, I was shocked. And there were lots of Arsenal fans who were quite excited because they looked at it and said, well, Koscielny's gone and we bought in Luiz and it's £8 million and it's an improvement. And I'm looking at it and saying, this guy's a clown. And I can't believe he's been given another shot at a decent-sized club. And his performances have proved that. He's given away 4 penalties, been sent off twice. And that's, you give away penalties and get sent off twice. Those things happen because you're poorly positioned. A good defender, that will happen to you once in a season, maybe. Because every now and then you get caught out. 4 times, it's 4 penalties, 2 straight red cards. He's giving goals away. He's not controlling the ball on his thigh, and I just think, he's a player with great technical ability, but he doesn't know when to use it, and he's dangerous. And I think you're at this point now where his contract is running out. If you're keeping players, you're looking at the value, and you say, well, we may as well keep him because he's an asset, but he can't be a starter in Arsenal's defence going forward. If he's not a starter, he's going to sit on the bench. If he sits on the bench, there comes a day he has to come on. And then what happens is what happened the other night. And now he's the fall guy. It's a game you're probably going to lose anyway. And on the balance of play, the coincidence was it shifted when he came on. The reality is, at some point, Manchester City were probably going to win the football match. And David Luiz becomes a scapegoat. But it's his own fault. And I think, why do you want a squad? Why do you want a player in your squad that you may have to use? And you're at the point where none of your fans want to see him there. That's the reality of it. There can't be a single Arsenal fan who's going to ever watch him get off the bench again and say, it's all right, David Luiz has got this. So I don't see why the club want to get themselves in that position. It can't be hard to find a better centre-half now. You can argue, and Alavi will argue, about how good he may have been earlier in his career. I disagree. I've never rated him as a defender. I think he's had a very lucky career. Good luck to him. He is the type of defender who, when like Barcelona will stick Mascherano at centre-half because they don't have to defend. If you put him in a team like that, he'd look great because he's got to defend for about 5 minutes a game and he can spray balls in the middle of the park. The reality is Arsenal aren't in that position. He's not going to join a club again that's in that position. And he's always going to cause Arsenal problems. And the easiest way to stop him causing Arsenal problems is to not offer him a new contract, and then he's gone, and then you're forced to replace him. Because there's no situation I can foresee where he helps Arsenal Football Club. Anything
but they
beyond...
won't replace him. That's the issue.
Yeah, but why not?
Go on,
Alavi. We've seen good youngsters coming through Arsenal this season, this very season. There is
How long's the guy out? How long's Mari out for? How long's the guy out for?
Well, we think he's probably going to be out potentially till the end of this season, so for another few weeks. But the reports
that could go on till longer than that.
Well, the reports that have emerged this evening say that Arsenal have signed David Luiz on a 1-year deal. That they've put an offer on the table for Cedric Suarez, who's currently on loan from Southampton, a right back, and they've put an offer on the table for Pablo Mari on permanent deals. Those two are reportedly going to get 4-year contracts. That's what they're saying. That's what the report says tonight. Again, we've had no official confirmation of this. As I said, we weren't even planning to talk about this, but we've been inundated with live comments. Yeah. So I felt it was right that we do discuss it.
Would you keep him, if he was a goalkeeper, if he was a reserve goalkeeper with that level of error in him, would you want him to sit on your bench? Because I'd liken it to, like Michel Vorm. Spurs re-signed him for no apparent reason. And then guess what happened? We had to play him because the other goalie got injured, or we gave him a game in the cup. And then guess what happened? Someone took a shot straight at him and he went in the fucking goal. And you can't have these players around you. There cannot be.
So is it purely because both Unai Emery and Mikel Arteta favour a possession-based style where the ball's played out from the back? It can't just be that they both see this guy as being a good defender, and it can't just be because they see him suiting their style. He has to have something about him that he's showing in training or whatever that. He's got something about him.
I think that what it is that they like about him is, first of all, he's got whether we like him or not, he's got a very experienced head on his shoulders. He's been there, he's done it, he's seen everything. Brazil, of course, when they were humiliated in that World Cup game, remember, by the Germans, he was one of the players that took the brunt of it. I think that has made him into not just that, but some of the experience he's had throughout his career have made him into a natural leader. I think he is a natural leader. I think that he came on against Manchester City and he made those errors, yet he voluntarily
came out at the end, didn't he?
He came out. He came out, and for all the things you can criticize David Luiz for, you can't say he hides or that he shies away from responsibility. He doesn't. So in that sense, he deserves a lot of credit. We've also, as Arsenal fans, heard a lot over the last few months and over this season about the positive influence that he's had on some of these younger players that are coming through, and the sort of the way he's put his arms around them, and in particular Gabriel Martinelli, who's obviously Brazilian, young kid, comes from Brazil, doesn't know the language, and he's come and he's got David Luiz there. It's a dream for him because he's got somebody there who knows the culture of the Premier League, understands what it's like to come from Brazil to Europe, and he's helped him sort of through that transition, and he's helped him very well. The problem with David Luiz is that he does make too many errors too often, and there comes a point where, as Arsenal fans, you get fed up of that. You can't keep forgiving someone for the same thing time and time again, and he has made some really silly errors. But what I will say is Mikel Arteta is clearly adamant that he believes that David Luiz is at the very least better than the other options he has available to him. And clearly, in my opinion, the fact that Arsenal are going to go out on a limb and give him an additional year says to me that there's been clarity that, in fact, this summer, Arsenal are not going to be able to go out and break the bank to get another centre back.
You got Saliba joining.
That's my point.
Yeah, Saliba's
he's on his way.
Saliba's on his way. We've paid £27 million for him. He'll be with the squad next season. But I think that in Mikel Arteta's eyes, and people are going to criticize Mikel Arteta for this, and this is one of those crossroads that you come to as a manager. And I know it's stupid to say that, given how short of a period of time he's managed his football club, but he's at one of those crossroads now where his decision is going to be scrutinized so badly, and later on down the line, if things do go the wrong way, this is one of the things that people are going to look back on and say, you got that wrong. Just like Emery had a few of those moments. One of them was the Ozil thing. There was the Xhaka thing. And, managers will have these moments through their career. And Mikel Arteta has been strong here if he's insisted on Luiz being given an offer, because this is the complete opposite to what the fan opinion says, to what the pressure says from the outside. And it seems as though he's gone, actually, I don't give a shit what everybody says, which, you need to do to a degree as a manager.
But isn't that what you want as a manager?
Yeah.
That's what you want in your manager.
You want a manager to be strong and not to be swayed by reactive fans. So I get that. But this is, he's really gone out on a limb here, and he's really done that and gone, I'm not going to listen to the noise outside. What I find strange as an Arsenal fan, and I'm going to come on to Alavi in just a moment, is the shock and the horror amongst the Arsenal fans this evening on social media, having seen these reports emerge. Mikel Arteta was pretty adamant after the Manchester City game in front of the camera that what had happened at the Etihad last Wednesday night was not going to have any influence on his decision as to whether David Luiz was worthy of a contract.
Of course not.
So we shouldn't be surprised by this. I mean, Alavi, you are a fan of David Luiz. You always have been. You've always admired the way he plays the game, his boldness, etc., etc. Try and give us some insight as to why you think Mikel Arteta feels that he's still capable of doing a job.
So, yeah, I would flip what you've said and put yourself in, if I'm Mikel Arteta, I'll put myself in his shoes and I'll go, I don't know that I'm going to have X amount to spend in the summer. I don't have the best set of central defenders in the world. Why would I? What sense would it make to let someone go? Someone who's a European Cup winner, Premier League winner, two-time FA Cup winner, Benfica, etc., all these trophies are won. That experience. What is the harm in him just being a backup central defender
You
at
saw
the
the
very
harm.
worst.
You saw the harm last night.
Okay. How many times is he going to come on? How many times
Every time he'll come on. Every time he'll come on, that will happen.
And also someone who plays the sort of football that I'm
I get that.
And that's quite clear when you have something like Ferguson, what he used to say about Keane, to have someone that epitomizes what you are trying to do, someone who holds onto the ball, moves forward in possession until someone forces you to engage and press, and then you release the ball and you're a leader. And like Harry said, the way he come out the other day, that's the sort of, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be fuming that he had cost me the game. I'd also be quite encouraged that a player had the balls to come out and be like, do you know what? That was my fault. I'm going to take all the pressure off my team. Like, how many leaders like that do Arsenal have? Like, Aubameyang's like the best player by an absolute mark, but I can't see him being a leader like that. He'd be a quiet captain who leads by example. So all these managers, they can't all be wrong about that. You can't tell me 10 managers in a row have been wrong about David Luiz.
The thing is that they've all sold him in the end, haven't they? He's played for a lot of clubs.
But what's the harm in a 1-year contract? Like you're talking like he's just been given a 4-year deal on like 300k a week, and he's captain and he's going to start every game.
I get your argument.
No, he's been given he's been given a 1-year deal, an experienced player, an experienced winner, an experienced leader who advocates the type of football that the manager wants, and he'll probably be on the bench. Like, big deal.
I'm not. First of all, I'm not convinced that he will be on the bench. I think that when he is fit and ready, and when his suspension is over, and when this contract stuff is all concluded, because Mikel Arteta basically admitted that the reason he was left out against Manchester City was because of what was going on behind the scenes. And, they had until today to make the decision. Otherwise, he couldn't stay for the remainder of the season due to the rules about the contracts and all that stuff. I think that David Luiz will play when he's available and when he's fit. I think that it's very easy to look. David Luiz has made a lot of mistakes this season. He has, and I always have this running commentary with you guys. I always text it in the group, don't I? The goal difference. I've got a goal difference tally going between how many goals David Luiz gives us and how many he concedes, because there was a period where he got sort of a few goals in the league coming up from set pieces and stuff, and we was like mirroring that up and having a good joke and laugh about it. But what I guess I want to say here is, I think he will. First of all, I think he will play. I think he is in Mikel Arteta's plans to be a starter. But prior to the lockdown, and between probably January, when we started our little unbeaten run, and I know it was only 3 months and whatnot, but given where we'd come from, it was a real improvement. Probably didn't win enough games in that run, but we avoided defeat, and we showed a bit more steel and a bit more, we were a bit tougher, and we just looked like a more difficult proposition to beat. In all honesty, David Luiz was one of the better players in that run. He was very, very good, and he was much improved on the David Luiz that we'd seen at times before. So some of the same fans that were saying David Luiz is doing really well under Mikel Arteta, he's improved a lot under Mikel Arteta, are still now going, because he made a couple of mistakes against City, we got to get rid of him. As a manager, though, you can't make decisions, can you?
Not on one game. But for me, my view is it's not over that game. And I think what we got, my issue with this is first of all, he's unreliable. And if you've got a bad back line, you need to be able to rely on your experienced player. If you can't rely on your experienced player, that experience for me is virtually worthless. And my issue is, I think this bit that he plays good football, it's slightly mythical. So I think he can spray a good pass.
No
He's got a lot.
way.
Wait, let me finish. He's got a lot.
Fucking
Yeah, I'm upsetting now. But he can rake a good pass. He tries to play the game in the right way. But if you look over the last 6 years, okay, the only season he's played well as a centre half is when he played for Antonio Conte, who didn't want to play that football. He let them sit so deep that no team could ever try and infiltrate them. And every time a ball came in, David Luiz headed it away superbly with his big head, and he had a fantastic season. But if you look at what Alavi was saying about how he's been at Benfica, Chelsea, he's won this, he's won that. He has. Can't take it away from him. He's been part of those squads, and he's obviously contributed to them in some way. But you know, Alavi mentioned 2 coaches. Well, Emery was there. He wasn't playing well under Emery, playing Emery style. Arteta tries to play out the back like Emery did. Emery did try and play out the back. Emery, in the end, ran out of ideas and started trying to play a sort of boring football and lost his identity. But I think from the outset, Emery tried to play progressive football. It didn't quite work out for him. Then he tried to pass out of the back with David Luiz there and Socrates and the others, and he couldn't do it. Arteta's trying to do the same thing. Now, Emery's won loads of trophies. Emery won more trophies at Seville than Arteta has won games as a professional manager. So we can't, Emery knew what he was doing. It didn't work. So is Arteta going to come in, wave a magic wand, and suddenly Luiz is going to stop making catastrophic errors? I just can't see it, and I just think.
Well, I think these managers know, Dan, that there's not going to be a big transfer window in the summer.
I just think I get that, but by the same token, you've still got a squad, and this is Arsenal Football Club. This is a massive football club. This is not like Bournemouth, or you see, how often do you see? I'm going to pick on Everton. Everton have got a great player in Wayne Rooney. He goes to Man United because he's outgrown Everton at that time. Then Wayne Rooney gets to the end of his career, and they sign Wayne Rooney as a complete token when he offers very little. Okay, he scored a hat-trick once, chipped in a couple of goals, but reality, what did he really offer? And I think you've got to be in that place if you're Arsenal Football Club where you're saying every single one of these players I need to be able to rely on, with the exception, of a couple of youngsters that, you throw them in to blood them. We're talking about a 35-year-old old man who's not capable anymore of doing the job he's asked to do, and you can't rely on him. And I just think for Arsenal, it's such a risk where I just don't see the value in it. It feels to me purely a business decision, and I just don't see the benefit of it. I think
the environment, the current environment, is bigger factor than I thought it would be. So if I look back at some of the central defenders that Arsenal were linked with a year or two ago, Koulibaly was one. Some great other names as well. I haven't kept up to date with all the latest Arsenal news, but the last one I heard was like some Colombian defender who plays for Genk called John Lukumi or something. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not quite the same breadth. So obviously there's something that's happened in this new environment that
I wonder
Arsenal aren't going to attract. So they've obviously thought like we're not exactly going to go and get the top central defenders in the world. We used to be able to get that second tier. We can't get them. So surely we keep David Luiz.
What are you going to say? What are you going to say if? So obviously, when you look at the central defensive options at Arsenal Football Club, there are a lot at the moment. None of which are good enough, but there are a lot. You've got Mustafi there, you've got Socrates there, you've got Holding there. Callum Chambers is due to come back. William Saliba's gonna be there. Zek Medley's another one who was in the squad at the weekend, didn't get a game. Youngster, sort of coming through the ranks. So there are players there, but if they extend David Luiz's contract and then they manage to offload Socrates and offload one of the others, then I'm probably going to be less frustrated by the Luiz signing, because then I think to myself, right, what this has come down to is you need to trim the squad down. You want to have a more concise squad of players that you believe are right for the job, and you've made the decision that you believe that David Luiz is superior to Socrates, for example, in which case I can then get behind the decision. But if you're going to keep them all and none of them are good enough, and then David Luiz's astronomical wage demands, which they are going to put a strain on what we can do elsewhere in the transfer market, then it's a problem. So, I think when you talk about transfer windows and you talk about transfer decisions, you have to wait for the entire thing to play out before you can then look back and say, was it a good window or was it a bad window? And I think we're very quick to jump on one decision here and there, but Mikel Arteta will, I hope anyway, have a longer term vision and a longer term plan as to what he wants to achieve by keeping David Luiz on.
Really quickly, I just think lockdown's been 3 months. I just think it's a long time. Do you really think those conversations haven't happened? Do you think this decision has been made outside of that transfer market? You can't tell me that they haven't gone round to Arteta and said, you might want to think about signing a couple of these players for next year because we don't have any money for that conversation has happened at every club. So
I agree.
The two are linked.
Yeah, I agree.
So
And that's my
Arteta's
point.
not stupid.
Yeah, that's my point. I think that this is signing David Luiz up, whether it's right or wrong, is part of a bigger plan than it is just do we keep Luiz or not. It's about they've obviously looked at how they want to rebuild for next season, and in Mikel Arteta's opinion, it might not even be a case of Mikel Arteta necessarily thinking, yes, David Luiz is the right man for me. It might just be a case of him looking at his options and looking at what is available to him in the transfer market and thinking, right, having looked at all of that, now, I think that he's my best option. Let's go over
told I've got 15 million to spend in the summer.
Yeah,
I better stick to him. Yeah,
exactly. Let's have a look at some of the live comments coming through, because we came to this topic because so many of you were discussing it in the chat. Marble Halls TV says DDL is Spurs. I was agreeing with his point, but then I may have to disagree with anything he says, given his allegiances.
And I think that's absolutely fair enough. It's fair game.
Carol says DDL is talking sense. He can't be a Spurs fan.
I'm going to take this off. I'm getting fucking all sorts of trouble.
This one is directed to Alavi. This is from Azzy in the chat. He says, Carlos Cuesta or Lukumi? Who the fuck is Lukumi, by the way?
He's the
gang centre half.
He's meant to be the next big thing, and it's like the Colombian defender is meant to be quite good.
All right, okay. I can't say
John Lukumi, something like
that. What else have we got in here as well? There's so many great comments coming through. Keep them coming, guys. Just scrolling through. It's just slow down on the scroll. God's sakes. It's a good time to tell you now, while I'm scrolling through your comments, that you can now become a patron of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. If you check the link out, rolling across your screen at the bottom, you head over to the website. You can sign up as a patron. There are 2 tiers of membership. You can just simply support the podcast for £1 a month, and you'll receive access to some exclusive content, or you can become a super fan where you'll get exclusive content, a free gift from us after 3 months, and various other bits and pieces to come in the coming months. And that's for £3 a month. You'll be supporting the podcast, and we can assure you that every penny of that will go back into improving it, enhancing it, bringing more people on board. We've already hired an editor for our website, and you'll find there is lots and lots of written content going on there on a daily basis now. So big improvements coming there, and big improvements coming everywhere. So if you want to help us out and support us, please feel free to do so. But that's not to say you have to, and we're not going to value you any less if you don't, and you're still going to get your questions answered, and you're still going to get access to all this free content. So don't worry about that. Maximus says, that's a great name, Maximus Genitalia. Yeah. This club is now an absolute joke. Mid-table, boring football, no attacking flair, and a horrible defence.
It's for you to answer.
I mean, that could be about 10 clubs at the minute.
15 clubs, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of mid-table. I looked at the table this morning. I mean, just like realised football started again, and Crystal Palace were 9th. So when did that happen?
Really?
Yeah, they're 9th. They've won 4 games in a row.
Exactly. We need City Chelsea to be good really on Thursday for football, don't we?
Yeah, we need that to be a good game.
City Liverpool, and then City Liverpool Thursday after. We need those to be good.
We need a boost. Yeah, we need a boost.
We do indeed. Lads, just a final topic of discussion. I want to talk about Manchester United a little bit, because obviously when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer first took the reins on a sort of permanent basis, things weren't going too well. And, there have been a lot of ups and downs in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United reign. There's been some big results, but there's been some really, really abysmal performances as well. Last week's game against Spurs last Friday night, we got the first glimpse of what could be, in my opinion, an incredible midfield in Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes. Dan, you will have watched the game up close. I'm sure Alavi saw it as well, but we'll come to you in a moment. Dan, watching it from the opposition side, how good were those two? And do you think that if Ole can get the right man in behind them, then that could be really the hub of Manchester United's team moving forward for the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, they're instantly clicked with the old synchronised diving, one each. I think Bruno Fernandes is a really, really good player. Really good player. Like effortlessly. He's always in space. Some of his passing and his vision is superb. He's not afraid to have a shot. Really, really, really impressive. Paul Pogba is a great player as well. Oh no, it is.
It's giving them OCD.
Sorry.
Carry on.
Yeah, so he's a really good player, and Paul Pogba is and has been a world-class player for a long time. So, in terms of midfield pairings, there's not much out there to compare to that. So, how do you build around it? I mean, Rashford's coming into a decent run of form. He's improved after a bit of a dip from his initial burst through. So, I think in an attacking sense, they've got a decent amount of supply to someone who's fast and can finish and is growing. So for them, it's all about now how do they get that defensive stability? I think he's quietly built a reasonable side there, hasn't he? I'm not convinced about the centre half pairings yet, and what he wouldn't have expected. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, when he took over like a year and a half ago, what you'd have said is this whole team needs a shake-up, but the goalkeeper's all right, and that's almost flipped on its head. Whereas now suddenly he's got a problem in goal, which you wouldn't have been expecting because De Gea's form has deteriorated over an 18-month period. And he's starting to get to that point now where there's too many mistakes as well. But I think as a pairing, I think he's got a lot to work with there. And if he can just find, this is where we're really going to see whether Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has grown as a manager. Because at the beginning, there were excuses for him. You could say the squad wasn't great. We could point at his lack of experience, his tactical lack of. But now he's got some players there. The board have backed him, and they get a lot of criticism. But they have given him, a top quality player there. Kept the players he's got. If Pogba and Fernandes are there next season, it should be pretty simple for him to build around that and put in a sustained top 4 challenge. Let's not forget they're still 5th and quite a way off 4th. So, it's not champagne and skittles.
I think fourth is feasible for them.
Yeah, it's within reach, but it's not a fantastic season they've had. Fernandes has only been there since January, but he's got something to build on there.
Any of those teams could end up having a good season purely because of other teams around them just losing like 3-4 in a row.
Yeah, it'd be quite competitive between third and 8th again, probably. But
I just think it doesn't matter how good those two are. If you've got Lindelof and Maguire behind you, you're going to have issues.
And this is it. Yeah, you need to. He's got an opportunity to build around that. How 80 million was ever spent on Maguire, I'll never know. But yeah,
has there been a player in this season where every other fan's gone, bloody hell, he's a bit good. Like Fernandes is just everyone sort of quietly gone, Jesus man, this guy can play.
I think he's settled really quickly as well, which often doesn't necessarily happen. You don't often see players settle so quickly. Some of them do, and then they have a dip a little bit later on. Some of them take some time to get going. I think what was, the Fernandes thing, it was quite a dragged out deal, wasn't it? We'd heard about Manchester United having an interest in him for a really, really long time. They finally got the deal over the line, and he hasn't disappointed. He's been really, really good. The type of midfielder that I think they've been missing for a long time. I think although we were talking about football not necessarily being at the level that it should be right now, I think even though he was only on for a little bit, we saw a glimpse of, we got a reminder, didn't we, of what Paul Pogba can do on a football pitch and how influential he can be. So I think, there's a lot to be optimistic about from a Man United perspective. We talk about the centre-half pairing not being necessarily that great. I get that, but, Wan-Bissaka at right back is a young player, looks as though he's going to do all right. Rashford is getting better and better. Even Greenwood, when you see him, you think, there's a player there as well. I would still maybe argue that Rashford is not necessarily a centre forward. I'd still
you'd have him coming in from the side, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd have him coming in from the flank. And if United could go out there and get a top class centre forward, then they're going to be a real difficult side to contend with. Reason to be optimistic for them. Not that it gives me any pleasure in saying that. Just before we wrap it up, because we've been going nearly an hour now. Big thanks to everyone tuned in. Loads of you watching us live at the moment, more than I expected. So thank you so much to all of you for tuning in at this late hour. the Luca, there's a question that keeps coming through and it keeps getting directed at you, and it's, what do we think of Tottenham?
What do I think of Tottenham? What do you think of Tottenham?
No. Song, innit? Even I
there's only one word.
Shit.
There you go. He's done it. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mr. De Luca, for being a good sport. Because if it was the other way around,
to be fair, that's an honest. That is an honest assessment based on current affairs. To be fair,
shows how bad West Ham are, doesn't it?
Terrible.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Shocking.
I hope they go down, to be honest, but that's a story for another day. Don't forget, guys, this show was sponsored by tvsportsblog.com, as is every edition of the Social Club. We'll be bringing you these weekly. We'll be talking about all sorts of football issues. We'll be touching on Arsenal from time to time. We didn't really plan to tonight, but there is big news coming out of the club, and understandably, you guys wanted to hear our take on it throughout this show, so we decided to divert that way a little bit. But my big thanks once again to Alavi and to DDL for joining me. We're going to be back next week with another edition, so until then, take care of yourselves and stay safe.